Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast with your host, Bruce Hutchin, episode number 266. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. Today, I'm pleased to have Walter Parrott, good friend. Brenda Valentine suggested Walter and I get together and spend some time talking about his background, and it's extensive, folks. He started competitive turkey calling back in 1978. He is the 5-time world champion. Even more than that, he was one of the original members of Redhead Pro hunting team for Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World. And he was one of the first pro staffers for Bill Jordan and Realtree. Enough said. Just listen up, because this man's going to share some wisdom about hunting, our hunting tradition, and what it takes to make it in the outdoor world. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, and hey, folks, we're in for a treat today. Walter Parrott. Do you say Parrott or Perot?
Well, it depends on where I'm at. If I'm feeling French, I'll say Perot, but it's Parrott everywhere else, Bruce.
Okay. So Walter Parrott, he knows something about turkey calling, 5 times world champion. He's been with Redhead Pro hunting team for Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World for over 20 years. He's also involved with Indian Creek shooting systems, and he knows a couple of folks in the hunting industry. Hey, Walter, welcome to the show.
How are you today, Bruce?
I'm doing just fine in the warm-up. We were giggling, folks. We had more fun in the warm-up than whatever. But it was good, and I thank Brenda Valentine for referring you to the show, because she's one heck of a lady.
Oh, yeah.
Like we said in the warm-up. So she said, I got to get down there and kill a turkey. So
that's right.
That's in our future.
That's exactly right.
So, you started off as a bricklayer, again, in the warm-up, we were talking about your past, and how did you just erupt into who you are as a turkey caller?
Well, I started at the ripe old age of 8, as far as turkey hunting back in Missouri. Season actually started in 1960, and in 1964 was my first season, and I fell in love with it the first time. The first time we went out, I didn't hear anything gobble, but I saw one, and I told my dad, I said, that thing looked like an ostrich. I can't believe how big it was. But I was hooked from that day forward. So, it was kind of in its infancy around that part of the world then, and nobody knew much about it. The old timers that did, if they did know anything, they wouldn't tell you, and if they didn't, they just bluffed their way through, So any way I could gain any knowledge about the wild turkey or hunting them, that's what I wanted to do. And I started going to calling contests, went to a couple of little local calling contests in Fairviewtown, Missouri, as a matter of fact, and that's where I got started. Listen to those guys, and the next year I competed. So
when I look at turkey calling, and we talked about Wayne Carlton, and he took the turkey call and began an elk calling. And I'm dating myself, but that's just the way it happened. And like we were laughing before, I didn't even know what a kiki run is, and I still don't, because I don't hunt turkeys, and I need to do that. That's for sure. But when I think about that, I think about elk hunting. I think of vocalization. For whitetail, as a turkey, caller, as good as you are, how do you transfer that to vocalization, or even, if you've hunted elk, calling them or calling any critter, how has that helped you?
Well, I like to try to be as natural as I can, no matter what I'm trying to call, and I always try to pay as much attention in the woods as I possibly can. Even in turkey hunting, crows and owls, and there's a lot of different things that tip you off in the woods, and if I'm going to imitate any of those, I try to do as most realistic as I can. And the situation a lot of times dictates how much I call and what I do and when I do it, including deer, like right now, whitetail is just coming in around here. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to go yet. I've been putting food plots in and working on things down here. It's been so dry and drought stricken, but calling deer, I will carry a grunt call all the time, because there's no need not to. And if you see a deer off in the distance that you're not going to get an opportunity at least you can give them a series of grunts. I'm not real aggressive with rattling horns unless per se Texas. I went to Texas a few years ago and got in on that thing, and as far as rattling goes, and I never would have believed how responded they were to those horns if I hadn't been there myself. But each scenario dictates itself on how I react to it with calling.
Now, being as passionate you are about turkey hunting, and let's just kind of spin it up this way, why is the hunting tradition so important to you?
Well, that's what I grew up doing. You were talking about how old you were a while ago, and I guess we're probably similar in age. We don't want to date ourselves, but back in those days, that was, we swam, we played baseball, and we hunted, and that was just what we did all the time. My dad was a big bird hunter, and ever since I was big enough to walk, I followed him around, and if he wouldn't take me, then I would apparently throw what he called a Thomas Fit, which was my mother's maiden name, so I wanted to go all the time, and got to, fortunately. But hunting has been a tradition in my family and forever.
Now, you talk about, your relationship with Bill Jordan over there at Realtree, and there's a lot of people who listen to our show across North America and say, man, I'd love to get in the outdoor business. I'd love to just be part of that. And how do I do it? What would you say to, somebody in their teens and their 20s and their 30s, even 40s or 50s, what would be the best advice you could if they come up and say, hey, how does a guy get his toe in the water here?
First thing I would tell you, if you were an adult, don't quit your day job. Oh, man, that's just, that's a hard question because things have really changed since I got on board with this deal. I was just fortunate enough that, Redhead was purchased by Bass Pro Shops, and Jerry Martin was there, and they wanted to start a pro hunting team. And then he got a hold of Bob Folkrod, and I was his second choice. And I guess Bill had went up there and talked to him about me, and Jerry was looking for a turkey guy and, was familiar with me from the calling competitions and stuff. And so I was fortunate enough to get asked to be part of that team, and things just fell into place, like I said, I was a brick mason for 25 years, and I was a laborer 5 years before that, and I had a good boss once I got up to where he was making me run work. I didn't really want to because I didn't want to consuming all my time, but I would leave on a Friday afternoon and get in the water barrel and wash my face and head and go get on an airplane and work a show for the whole weekend and get back at midnight and then get up, Monday morning and go back to work at 5 o'clock. So there's a lot more to it than just being on TV and having an opportunity. And, you have to you have to have the right kind of personality and be able to talk to people and be sincere, I think. And it's easy to sell a good product.
One thing you just said, you went to work Friday afternoon, evening, you got on a plane, did a show, come back late Sunday night, went to bed, got up, went to work again. And folks, that's what it takes. It takes hard work. I'm thinking of Dr. Sean Tyson I talked to last night with Pure One Outdoor, and he was a chiropractor, but he loves the industry, so he develops some products. But he said, Bruce, I'd work my day job for 8 hours, 10 hours a day. Then I'd spend 4 hours every night. So he said, yeah, I did go to the kids' games and stuff like that. But every spare minute he had, he said, I didn't hunt for a while because I wanted devoted myself to a company. And you just heard Walter say the same thing. He dedicated himself, to something he loved, and it's the passion. Talk to me about really the passion that you see in the industry today that makes us both hopeful for our future.
Well, you've got a lot of young hunters, nowadays they're doing some television shows and I think leaning in the right direction and, supporting all the organizations that the sport that we love, So, and I think that's where we need to stay strong. You've got to, you need to be a member of the NRA, and you need to be a member of the NWTF to help protect our rights to hunt and and bear arms. And at the same time, you need to teach the youth, of today about the outdoors, because they really don't know. And I'm saying that and speaking from experience from my granddaughters. They were in the Girl Scouts. The oldest one was. And a few months ago, I said, well, what did you learn in the Girl Scouts? What did they teach you? I said, do you know how to build a fire? Well, no, we don't know anything about that. I said, do you know anything about survival? Well, no. So, I'm sure they taught them some good things and some nice ways to, sell cookies and stuff like that, but still, they need to know about the outdoors. What if something happened? What if something happened, like, you never know. People don't, a lot of people and young people don't know how to take care of themselves, and they would have some major problems, something as simple as building a fire when it's wet, I don't know. It's just, that was all part of the outdoors for me. That's the things that we learned. We would go lay on the bank and fish and, clean your fish and eat and learn how to live. Not basically off the land, but that was fun, when you're doing that. But those are skills that are lifelong skills that you can use. So.
Yeah, you sometimes scratch your head, about what kids are learning. And I've been fortunate to do some work with the Hunt Master program here in Colorado. And, we took kids from all walks of life and get them out just in a secure setting, but a setting they had to figure it out. And it's amazing that the things that you and I picked up just because that's what we did. We after school, I remember when I was in grammar school, I'd grab my little fishing rod, some worms, and I'd go catch some trout, take them home, and we'd eat them. Mm-hmm. That was a norm. I was just on my way home from school, and I said, "Oh, okay, I'm going to go catch a couple of trout." And go catch a couple of trout and do it. Same thing with squirrels and rabbits, and all the other critters that kids love to chase. And how do we share that? What are the groups that you're involved? How do you get the kids involved?
Well, there's some different programs, like the NWTF has the Jakes, and there's, we do some hunts, some youth hunts that actually have some children that have cancer and other various, life-threatening illnesses and stuff like that. We do that every spring and try to, promote all that, not getting off of the youth part of it, but, just those kids, they love to go, and a lot of them are terminal and going through a lot of things, and that's what they want to do. They want to learn to hunt. We have a turkey hunt every spring in Georgia, the Outdoor Dream Foundation, and bring the families in and have a little dinner and give the kids all some good stuff, and they get to go out the next day and hunt some prime property, and you just do it any way you can do it, try to get the children involved, and like, you're right, you made a statement, you wonder what they're learning. My granddaughters were scared to death of guns, and I said, what do you mean? Why? Let's go shoot. No, what? Gun? I said, yes. And so the oldest one was 17, and we went to the gun range with a friend of mine. I had him bring a bolt action 22 up there. Now, obviously, I'm not preaching to you that a 22 is by any means the safest weapon in the world, but we were in a range setting with sandbags, and the middle one started crying. She just couldn't imagine shooting. I said, Emma, you don't have to shoot, but you need to stop crying. I'm not going to make you do something you don't want to do. Well, I'm afraid of it. I said, well, there's no need to be afraid of it. You just don't understand it. It's no different than a vehicle. If you, if you can make anything you want to make in this world bad if you want to, but there's nothing wrong with the gun if it's handled correctly. And finally, she said, I'm going to shoot. So she shot, and she ends up shooting every shell that we have, in the targets, and I created a monster. But once she understood, there was not a problem. The only problem is the person that's handling the gun. I said, how do you handle a gun? How do you treat them? You treat them like they're all loaded. You never point one in a direction that's unsafe. You have to consciously always think about that as far as safety aspect goes. I grew up bird hunting with my dad. He was right-handed, I was left-handed. He said, two's company and three's a crowd when you're quail hunting. He would shoot from the center to the left. I would shoot from the center to the right. There was no mistakes. You didn't cross that line, because you did, you'd be standing there with the empty gun watching. So that doesn't, for some kid that loves to hunt like I did, or anything, like, what I'm talking about. If you love to hunt and fish like we did, taking that away from you learns pretty quick. And you only get one chance, as far as the loaded gun goes. And I don't want to get off on a rant, but I see a lot of that on television, people jumping around and pointing their shotguns and rifles and stuff, and unsafe directions, and, makes me a little nervous.
Well, yeah, and I'm fortunate with my grandkids, they've all been in the range, and I've got I can't even remember how old my 22 bolt action single shot, 22 is, and I've had that for a long, long time, but that's what that's where they start. I mean, they start off with that, and they can't muzzle anybody, their brothers or sisters or dad or me. I'm not saying it's a smackdown, but all of a sudden I'm in their face and saying, you just shot me. Well, what do you mean, Gramps? I said, did the muzzle go at my body? Well, yeah, but it's not loaded. Yes, it is. Well, how do you know? Well, check it. And it's not loaded, but I said, you've got to learn this from day one. And it's just like Walter said, you don't get a second chance, folks, but you got to train the kids right, or train your wife right, or train your brother right, because people today in my opinion, have a really strange sense about what guns are and what they're not. And Walter and I were privileged that we grew up the way we grew up. That it was just there. And I thank Otto Knight, my neighbor, for training me. And he got in my face one time and says, if you do that again, there's no more trout fishing, no more grouse hunting, there's no more rabbit hunting, no more killing squirrels. I go, I'm like 10 years old or whatever.
That's right.
That got my attention, Walter.
It did.
That got my attention.
It did, and you never worried about a gun because you knew, right off the bat, you learned early on that's something you don't mess with, so nobody did. It was not a problem and not a big deal, And just one more thing on the 22 rifle. My dad wouldn't let me have one until I was 16. He wouldn't let me hunt with it for the simple fact that he said that's the most dangerous round that there is that people do not respect. He said, if you look on the box, it says 1.5 miles, the range of that. He said, that's there for a reason. And people don't respect that. So he would not let me mess with one until I was 16 years old. That's how dangerous he felt they were. And they were, they are, still are, very dangerous.
And, I love that because one time we're sitting at the barn and the fox came across the field and Otto gave me the 22 and he said, go ahead and shoot that. I said, shoot it. I can hardly see it. He said, you're going to learn a lesson here. So he said, put it about 3 feet over his head or whatever. He said, see that piece of corn behind it? Aim at the top of that corn. And I did, and I hit right in front of that fox. And I'm a little kid, so I don't know how far it was, but it wasn't 100 yards. It wasn't 200 yards.
Right.
I knew that because I knew how big the cornfield was. And I'm going, holy praise, says, never forget that. Never point this, if you're plinking, make sure you get a backstop. If you're shooting a squirrel, make sure, he's on the right side of the oak tree, blah, blah, blah. Things that but folks, this is important as you train up your kids. Walt, your thoughts?
You're dead on. It is very, very important. Like I said, you only get one chance, and that's it. You hear about it all the time. Youngsters having accidents with their parents, and it's I know we're trying to have fun on the show, but this is very important. People need to really think it over. Safety first. Always safety first.
Hey, let's talk about your gal friend that kind of out hunts you with whitetails. What's up with that?
Well, it's just the truth, basically. We got a place we get to go in Kansas. We're fortunate enough to hunt, and I really enjoy it. There's a nice lake there. We can fish, and I go up there about 3 or 4 days before they show up, and I scout around and glass around and find out what's going on and try to find a deer that she wants. The first deer she wanted to kill was a Boone and Crockett deer. And
oh my goodness, her first deer?
She's been no. She's hunted her whole life.
Okay.
She killed several deer, but she looked at it as an opportunity to kill a big deer, which is right, So, you never know how many chances you're going to get or how many times you're going to go. And so she passed numerous nice deer, It takes a lot of bone to get to 170, as you know yourself. So she passed some nice 150s and stuff, and she hunted 4 years before actually shooting the first deer she shot. It's got a 10-inch drop tine, and he scored. He grossed 175, and she let another deer that was a Boone and Crockett gross go by. Which now that sounds great, and that sounds like every time you go to Kansas you're going to see deer like that. You know yourself that's not true. You hunt years and years. You never know what kind of a smorgasbord you're going to have. But anyway, she killed that deer, and I videoed it, and she goes, okay, I'm going to kill a 200-inch deer. And I said, sure. I said, I'm going to have to quit with you. You're killing deer like this. So 4 years later.
No.
I'm afraid so, Bruce. It's muzzleloader season. No. We would go early muzzleloader. She was bow hunting.
Up in Kansas? Are you in Kansas now?
No, I'm not in Kansas now. I'm going in the middle of the month.
Okay.
Without her, I'm not taking her. She's going to stay home. But she bow hunted, and for a while, and then she fell. We were turkey hunting one day, and we heard a gobbler, and she got up and got her leg twisted up in a grapevine and fell down and cradled her Benelli like it was a baby, and actually broke her forearm, and she's had trouble shooting the bow. Never did really get back on track. But anyway, she's, as most women are, she's an awesome shot with a rifle, and you probably know that already. But
right,
there's generally nobody shoots better than women do with a rifle, and she's one of those. And I went out there and saw the deer, and actually it kind of scared me when the first time I saw it was in an alfalfa field, and we walked down behind another deer. It was a little draw there in the field, and I just caught a glimpse of his antlers in the evening in a spotting scope, and lo and behold it was, and we saw him again, and then she ended up getting a shot at him, killing him. She passed out some other deer. We're sitting at a deer stand on a different side of the property, and she said, I'm nudging her. She said, I see him. And I said, I'm not shooting him. All I want's that other deer. I said, we're wasting our time hunting over here. So we started hunting that deer exclusively, and actually got a glimpse of him the evening before, and the next morning got in on him, and things worked out, and she shot him.
Oh, my goodness.
Through the neck at 90 yards.
Oh, my goodness.
Because he was...
So how do you live with that, though?
How do I live with that? Oh, it's easy.
Yeah.
She gets too cocky. I'll just say, well, who's guiding you? What if I would have been there by myself?
Oh, my...
I probably would have shot one before that deer.
Oh. Mature deer. I'm hunting mature deer. I've been doing that for the last 10 years.
Right.
Because, some years I don't shoot anything. People say,
sure.
Well, how come you let that buck go? Because I don't want to shoot him.
Yeah, she's eating about 8 or 9 tags, but that's her opportunity when she gets to go.
Oh, yeah.
To try to take a big deer, and that's what she's wanting. And she's passed up some mature deer, but, like I was saying, it's not like there's one behind every tree, and we're on a deer farm. We're just on a farm that's it's farmed is what it is. And occasionally they have a good one, and you can get an opportunity at it. But it's fun, and I like that part of the world. There's like 4 or 5 cars go out down the gravel road in the morning, and 4 or 5 cars come back in the evening, And then you might see the road grader. You might see a combine or something, or somebody, dragging some farm equipment. But other than that,
the postman, or maybe even UPS.
Yeah. But that's about it.
That's it. Yeah. Wow. Why do you think the women are the fastest growing segment in the outdoor industry today?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I think it's probably got a lot to do with it. Their boyfriends and husbands, are hunters, and they just get, started into it. I was unfortunately I had a root canal the other day, and I was getting a cap put on Tuesday. I'm finishing me up, and the young lady in there was talking about hunting, her and the dentist both. And she said she tried rifle hunting, and the rifle was too big and it hurt her. And then she was trying to find one. Her dad was trying to find one for her that wouldn't, but the price was so high, and I was trying to, help them on where to go and get a good buy on that. And she said, I really want to bow hunt. But she said, the bow prices are worse than the rifle. And I said, yeah, a lot of times they are. But then I told her there were some kits that she could get that had, shorter draw lengths, and get it in for the right price, because, you really never know. She's never tried it, so she doesn't know what she likes or not, so it's not a good idea to spend a lot of money on something that you don't know whether you're going to like it or not right off the bat. But I think it's got a lot to do with their spouses and boyfriends. If they want to tag along, they're going to have to do something.
Yeah, and the other thing, a lot of ladies, I think at Kirsty Pike over at Pro is, Brenda Valentine's iconic. If you look at her resume,
sure,
and her career, and she's been a leader, first lady of hunting, in North America. And that's true statement, folks. And the things she's done at POMA, Professional Outdoor Media Association, I mean, she's involved heavily in with the Turkey National Wild Turkey Federation, and all that. And I think how much she's given back. But she's one of the models that women have to say, wait a minute, here's a gal, and she is so humble. I mean, you can sit with her and have a cup of coffee and a slice of apple pie, and you think you've met a friend that you've known since grade school.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how she is. And I think about people like that who, have reached out and helped hundreds, if not thousands of women understand that they do have a place. And you mentioned something before, and I'll kind of echo that right now, is women are better shooters than men overall. And I used to be involved in guiding fly fishermen, and I'd love to have a woman as a client, simply because they just wanted to learn. They'd soak it all up, and their effort when they're casting, and it's just they just let it become a rhythm of their body, and it's instinctive. I don't know how else to say it. I get guys out there and macho and testosterone. They're frothing the water, as I call it, or putting their flies in the willows behind them. But women just take to it so easily. And, your thoughts on that?
Well, they don't have an ego. That's the main thing. Men have egos. And one man doesn't like another man telling him what to do and how to do it. So women just, you just tell them how to do it. They go, okay, all right. They do exactly what you tell them to do, just like your casting you're talking about. That's why they're proficient at it. A man, he's fighting it all the time. First of all, he didn't want another man telling him how to do something, Think about it.
No,
I think that's the biggest thing.
So, guys, you can learn from your wives or your girlfriend. Help them get into the sport, and if they're pretty good at it, humble yourself and say, how do you do that so well? I mean, humble yourself and bite your tongue, but we miss so many great opportunities to help women get empowered. I guess that's the biggest thing, because the outdoor industry shows women that they can do it, whatever it is. And once you gain that confidence, you can transfer that into other parts of your life. That's a life lesson that I've learned, through hundreds of people I've had on the show and all the other stuff I've done in my life. But you empower a person that they own it, whatever, again, it is, and then they blossom as a human being. Walter, your thoughts?
I think you're correct. And, and back to the women thing, we went to a small lake down here in the south, which bass grow bigger down here, and there's no doubt. I'm from the Midwest, from Missouri, and it takes a little longer for bass to get big. And we've been turkey hunting, and Terry and I were fishing, and a friend of ours took us over this lake, and she kept casting in the same place. Of course, I'd like to think I'm a bass fisherman. I grew up, bass fish as long as I've hunted and stuff, and I'm like, gosh, you just keep pounding that same place. You think there's one there? She said, don't worry about what I'm doing. Just like that, and I laughed and went on. In a couple of minutes, she caught the biggest bass I've ever seen in my life. Now, I don't know if she knew it any better, but if I ever held a 12-pound bass, I was holding one that day.
Goodness.
Oh, I'm talking, when it swirled up in front of her, I said, oh my God. And then I was excited. She said, I got it. And I'm waiting out there wanting to get my hand on this lip because I just wanted to touch it. But
oh my goodness.
So you tell me, they're, and I've been in the woods with Brenda, and she's sharp and slips around. And speaking of that, I mean, we got to travel this fall to the fall classics together, and we had a blast. She called me up and was kind of excited that she was going to get to go with somebody that she knew for once, and we had some fun. We went to Arizona, and we went to we came to Colorado.
Did you?
Yeah, and we had some fun. She's a hoot now.
Oh, yeah, I'm friends with Judd Cooney, so Brenda visited his farm out there in Iowa and hunted with him, and
oh yeah,
just
I know
stories. They don't end. The stories don't end.
Judd is a mess now.
oh, yeah, you get him wound up and. Only Fred. He's quite a guy, though.
Oh, yeah.
Iconic. He's another gentleman that he's written more articles and has literally over 100,000 pictures that he's taken in his career. And quite the guy. And hey, Walter, we're at, I told you 30 minutes are going to go really fast. So that's to the point. So, are a couple of people you just want to say hi to on the show?
I'd like to say hi to the pro staff, the Redhead Pro Hunting Team. The guys, I haven't seen them in a while, but going to see Brenda and Grant Woods and Rob Keck next week, or the 8th. But give a shout out to them for me.
Well, and we will. And so, Walter Parrott, this has been fun, and Brenda said it would be fun, and she's spot on. And we didn't talk about a lot of whitetail things today, but we talked about the hunting tradition. A couple of old guys sitting on the porch and talking about things that are important to us and how it's changed and molded our lives. And so, on behalf of the thousands of people who across North America who listen to our show, thanks so much for being a guest.
Thank you, Bruce, for having me.
Make sure you listen to the next episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We're going to head to northern Minnesota with that show, and we're going to talk to Tina Kane. Tina Kane is executive director for Treason. Now, Treason is a new camel pattern that's on the scene, and I used it during my sheep hunt in August, and it worked, folks. It blended in, it kept me warm, and it was very functional. And I didn't have any problems with it at all. So I'm very happy to have Tina Kane, executive director of Treason, on the next episode of Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.